Good morning, everybody. It's Merritt Minnemeyer here. I'm the founder and creator of Master of One Coaching, which is an executive and leadership coaching practice for world changers based here in the New Paltz, Hudson Valley area in New York State, but with international reach. And speaking of international reach, I am blessed to be joined by my bestie this morning, Jennifer Tonnis, who is not only one of my oldest, that is to say, longest term friends, and my dearest, but also an incredible inspiration and to me, and a leader very much in her own right. And today we're going to talk about uncommon paths to leadership, because you certainly have had that and continue to have that. So welcome, Jennifer.
Good morning. Thank you so much. What an honor to be with you, Merritt. I've enjoyed your Friday live sessions since you began them, and it feels special now to be in the seat with you. So thank you.
Well deserved, obviously. And so tell the world a little bit about your story and how it relates to why you call it an uncommon path to leadership.
It's an uncommon path to leadership because I've had a potpourri of a career, and professional and personal accomplishments along the way. You know, I popped out of elite schools, having attended a 7-sister school, with this idea that you're supposed to drive forward and either go to graduate school or hit the ground running and just go up that ladder of defined success. And I came out idealistic and I wanted to make a difference in the world. I still do. And in New York City with you, and went into nonprofits and realized that what I wanted to do was change the organizations more than I wanted to make the impact, because I saw the greater impact as making them more efficient, if that makes sense. And I spent some time there and then said, hey, I need to go to graduate school because I need to know how to manage these organizations, because if they're not managed well, we're not going to do well overall. So got a master's in public administration along the way, and twists and turns in that process as well, because that's life. Life is sometimes it's sticky and it's messy, but popped out the other end and realized that I am so passionate about so many different topics that the best I saw was, again, better management for local governments was kind of the direction that I really wanted to go, because you see so much provided in local government, and I'm a huge advocate for the services that are provided. And I began to see what I refer to from my mentor, Nancy Hetrick, gold stars in organizations. And so I didn't even want to work for one local government. I landed at a wonderful consulting firm, boutique little firm, but big in our own britches. In that we are the largest largest local government consulting group in the country, that specializes in those city, county, special districts, all that stuff, management partners. And what we do is go into different organizations and help them run better. And I love it. So, and I did that. And then I had a kid, and then my life turned again. And I realized that for me, for my family, the balance needed to be that I work part-time. And then I happened to have joined the board of an organization promoting STEM education. And then I happened to have run some political campaigns and been an advisor to a local politician. And then we lived abroad, and then I came back. So it's all over the place, but my message here is that I have had so many hats. I've had so many titles. I've had silly titles. My favorite was senior manager, in which I felt like I was either running a Walmart or I was in charge of projects, right? And what I learned in that is that titles don't matter. It really doesn't come down to it. Again, it's going back to that thought process that it came out of these elite schools, and you're supposed to climb this ladder, and you're supposed to be this, and at this age, you're supposed to be a vice president of X, Y, and Z. Public sector, private sector, whatever it is. What I have learned is that regardless of title, it's finding the place where you make the biggest impact. And that impact is not necessarily because you are the highest power person in the room. It's where you edge yourself and where you find the people who will listen to you. And you find your moments to make those changes and make those differences along the way. So that's the potpourri of my career, and the reason why I gave up long ago the idea of title.
Yeah, and what speaking to you a lot is influence too, right? So the influence that you have in a room, who's listening to you, who you're listening to, right? So that you can understand what they need, and the impact that you're having based on what the needs are expressing, and also your expertise and kind of our own, what's called a zone of genius, right? Which is like, where can I really dive in with what I know to be true and what I understand to be true through my education, my experience, and use all of that to channel your abilities and your gifts for the better, greater good. And I'm smiling here because Adrienne is here. And by the way, you all should know each other. Adrienne is another woman who has definitely created her own way and her own pathway to leadership. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, and she says she loves how you describe impact. So indeed, I do as well, Adrienne. And good to see you this morning. All right, Jenny. So Jennifer, excuse me. So so let's dig into that passion a little bit more, because that's something that's driven you. I mean, we met when we were 13, 14 years old, and that was something apparent from the moment I met you way back then, 5 or 6, 7 years ago. Well, tell me a little bit about how that was born for you. Where did that come from?
Oh God. So my passion, and I go back to this all the time, is the beautiful Maya Angelou quote of "You're paid for," and you're paid for by the faces that you've never seen. And I deeply understood, not only from my own family story and history, that I have a responsibility to my community based on the people who have already sacrificed for me to be where I am. And for me, that is especially it's women, it's women's rights, it's going back to suffragettes, here or in the United Kingdom, and it's my ability to have gone to 8 years of single-sex education, which a lot of young women would just cringe at the idea, and I adored it, and it grew me so well, and knowing that women who sacrificed and gave up so much so that I could do that. Walking out of those schools, it meant, hey, guess what? I now need to pay for that next generation, for the faces who will never see me. And so that's always driven my passion and my work along the way. And I think it's regardless of a particular subject. But it is going back to that desire for impact where you can find it along the way. So that's my motivation. Maya Angelou comes back to me all the time. You're paid for. I just love that.
Yeah. She definitely her wisdom has landed in the ether of millions, and we'll treasure her that for the rest of our existence as a human species. I think she's just contributed in a way that spans culture and generations. All right. So passion as it relates to specific social impact, as you have experienced it, as you have driven it, as you understand it. Let's dig in more specifically into that. So before we get into kind of present day, one of the things that I learned from you so many years ago, and that I have always I think it helped definitely grow me as a person and as someone who was justice focused. I remember you having a member of your family or an intimate family circle who was a judge in the Bay Area, and who was an example for you, and a woman, right? And was she an adoptive mom too?
No, she's a natural mom. Yeah.
Natural mom. Okay, I had that in my head, but I just remember you telling stories about her and like how powerful she was and how much impact she had and how passion driven she is maybe, and that really made an impression on me. Even though I think I met her maybe once.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Who else were your influencers? Growing
Yeah.
up,
Sure.
personal influencers.
Yeah. Besides Her Honorable Gail Barriola,
Yeah.
who is still serving at Alameda County judge. And when I met her, she had, this is the early 90s, and she was bringing forward one of the first justice courts for drug intervention. So the idea of, prevention and treatment over punishment, which was radical at that point,
Yeah.
and radical in a place like Alameda County, which is the home of Oakland, which is a predominantly African American community, but has been, the drug issues and the urban issues have been, and the policing issues have been very difficult over the years in Oakland.
Yeah.
To give you some of your guys an idea, the Oakland Police Department's been under federal decree now for almost 20 years for their police practices.
Wow.
Yes, and so Gail pioneered this concept of treatment over punishment for drug offenders, which is, as I said, it was radical. But along the way, there have been just I'm like, how do I choose? Moment of people that inspired me, and a lot of them are people names that other people would not know. And I think that's what's amazing. So, and going back to my own childhood, it comes from parents who would bring us to, again, it's site specific, but to Glide Memorial Church in San Francisco, which is known as this very open, very loving space. And in the middle of the AIDS crisis in San Francisco, we went to services, and part of what Glide does is that everybody holds hands. And so you're standing there and you're holding the hand of a homeless person, or again, talking about, this is now the late 80s, a transgender individual in the middle of the AIDS crisis. And how do we know how this disease is passed? But there you come together in this understanding. And so seeing people in those situations are it's inspiring to me. The leaders of that church, it's everyday people. That's really what it comes down to. I have found it's the people I meet. I'm starting to do, now that I'm half vaccinated, I'm starting to do community work again, and getting out and feeling comfortable. And it's meeting someone at 6 a.m. as we're putting together sandwiches to give out to, local populations, either in line to get their own vaccine, or people who, haven't had a meal to eat in a week. Those are the people who inspire me on a regular basis. Yeah. And the other is my own kid. She inspires me. She makes me want to be stronger every single day. It's a classic story of parenthood, but again, it's that concept going back to Maya Angelou, and you're paid for. And I need to raise her with those same, that same ethical basis that I got.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She inspires me too, your kid.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. So let's talk about social impact work that you are seeing. As I'm curious about how it's playing out for you in your professional life, if you can speak to that a little bit. And we talked about your personal work a little bit, but do you mind talking to that a little bit more, and kind of how that's showing up for you in the current climate?
Yeah. I think one, again, going back to those moments when you can leverage for impact. I mentioned her before, but I have a great mentor, and I'm so lucky to work for her, Nancy Hetrick at Management Partners. And Nancy and I are building a portion of our business right now, which is actually an executive search. And that's placing the next generation of leaders in local government. And, I was thinking about, you spoke with Ellen last week about diversity and inclusion, and it was great conversation. And one of the ways where my impact, regardless of title, is I can use it, is a conversation I had with Nancy just a couple of weeks ago, and said, hey, you know what? We are we are lucky in local government in that diversity is not as difficult for us to ensure we're bringing forward to a client when they want a series of candidates. And it's also because we're in the West. It's our pure geographic circumstance. But where are communities that we're not reaching? It's the AAPI, it's Asian American Pacific Islander communities that maybe we're not hitting hard enough. And how do we expand that outreach? And maybe it takes some more investment on behalf of our organization to do. We're doing a great job, but could we do better? And let me dive through our data and see who have we recruited in the past? Are we bringing forward the right people in those situations? And so, as I said, it's taking those moments when you've got the ears of people and taking advantage of that to promote social change.
Yeah. I'm just going to reset the room, as I say, real quick for anybody who is joining us new. I'm sitting here with my dear friend and comrade in arms, Jennifer Tonnis. She's a public policy and administration expert and a consultant for local governments there, not just in California and the Bay Area, but we work with all over the country, right?
Nationwide. Yep, nationwide.
Nationwide. And we've known each other for a long time. And we're talking about uncommon pathways to leadership and how we sort of blow open the traditional journey toward leadership. And, as I sit here in my corner office, which is the corner office of my home, I keep saying you don't need a corner office, and yet I built myself one, which is really nice, but it's mine. But regardless of title or position, role in an organization, even where can you have influence and exercise your passion muscles for the greater good, right? For the good of your community and the world at large. All right, Jenny. So I would be remiss to go any further without saying that you and I went to high school together at Santa Catalina School in Monterey, California. So we can give a shout out to Catalina.
Yep.
And I think we might have some alumni joining us today from there as well. So I also wanted to extend the invitation again that if you are just joining us or you're listening and will have a thought, insight, question for either one of us, please go ahead and drop that in the chat. We'd love to address that live, or we can also come back in the comments later, but we would love to hear from you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about your experience as a world traveler and how you lived abroad. You've also traveled extensively. And how have you seen? Well, I could ask a specific question. What would you like to say about your experiences as a traveler, as an American traveling abroad, in terms of your justice lens? Does that give you a platform enough to spring off of?
Besides do it, if you can do it and do it with your eyes wide open. If you are passionate about social justice, if you're passionate about human rights, if you're passionate about just the world, children, whatever it may be, do it with your eyes open. My amazing partner, Eric, and I like to talk about how we never travel via Hilton. That's not how we go. We go and we stay with families when we can. We are away from most of the rest of where people travel. And that's where you learn the most, not only about those cultures and those people, but I think about yourself. And you come back asking more and more questions, which makes you want to change more and more, which makes you want to increase your impact in your world. And, it's interesting. I think we lived in the United Kingdom for almost 3 years. And that was, in some ways, more fundamental to me, living in a different environment and seeing a world where what it meant for people when they didn't have to worry about healthcare, when they didn't have to worry about housing or the next meal that they're providing to their families, because the governmental structure is in place and those are the priorities that their country and their communities have made. And that coming back into local government for me has really inspired my own perspectives on policy. And the idea, I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here, but the idea that if we want to affect big issues like climate change, we've got to make sure that people have secured housing and healthcare here first. because how can you expect most people to pay attention to climate change or other big policy issues if they're still struggling on the day-to-day of where they are?
It goes right back down to basic instincts, yeah, survival. And I have a colleague who posted a video last week, and she's like, your brain is kind of an a-hole, right? Because it's focused on primarily on keeping you alive. Mm-hmm. And if it is not sufficiently satified that you are going to be alive in the next hour, day, or week, then it's not going to be able to think beyond that. No. And it just can't. We're just not wired for anything other than that. If our basic needs are threatened, right, or not being met. Yeah. It's a great point. It's a great point. Mm-hmm. And tell me a little bit about the challenges that you have faced. So I know we talk a lot about inspiration and passion and drive and what makes us tick and what makes us want to do the good work that we strive to do. What are some of the challenges or kind of shadow side pitfalls of doing the work that you've done and having your eyes wide open?
Well, it's I think what I sorted through coming out of graduate school for me, and that was the difference between wanting to chase after every really important cause and fix everything, and instead to step back and try and fix how those problems are solved. So going back and wanting to help an organization be better. Local government, we talk a lot about efficiency and effectiveness, right? It's big. Those are big words that sometimes are not really held on to well. But you have to have a well-run organization in order for that organization to achieve its mission. Yeah. So regardless of its mission. And so my challenge earlier on in my life path, I like to refer to it as that versus my career path, because it is all of us. It's not just your professional definition. It was finding out that my best space where I could make the biggest impact was to help those organizations run themselves better, which is why I have a master's in public administration. It's how to run a government. It's how to run a nonprofit. And I had the joy of helping a nonprofit working in STEM education and first generation college students shift from an all volunteer space into a professionally run organization. And that's, incredibly rewarding thing that chunk of my life path that I took. And it kind of comes back to something else that I wanted to talk about. And that is that, when your eyes are open and when you know what you can do, you bring to the table at any given time a skill set that makes that change. If you're not caught in this linear path of needing to increase your title, increase your salary, increase your whatever in a particular way, you're open to other opportunities. So it's that stint that I took with a nonprofit as a volunteer board member, right? I joined and ran some political campaigns. Who knew I was going to do that? Well, maybe you did, but it was those opportunities along the way. I mean, I came home from the United Kingdom, and it was because I couldn't work there for visa reasons. I could volunteer, but could not work. Came back and met with a local mayor that I'd worked with before, and because I had his ear, sat down, had coffee, and said, so, what do you think I should do? And he's the mayor of the 10th largest city and the 5th largest economy in the world, 10th largest city of the state of California, which is the 5th largest economy in the world. And we went through all these different things of what I could do. And then he said, actually, I have a political campaign for you to run for me. And so that was it. And it was 17-minute conversation. We joked about it at the end, and we came to that decision, and you go with it. It was one of the most challenging jobs I have ever taken. There's a whole other story about when it's time to bow out of a situation, when you realize that you are not the one, maybe to bring something to success, a whole other bit.
It's a great thing to know, though. It's a really important thing to know.
So important to know. But what I've learned is that if you surround yourself with intelligent people who make you want to challenge yourself, it doesn't matter where you are again in that world of titles. It's unorthodox leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, as we're rounding the bend here to 10:30, this is the portion of the program where we usually say, if you have a golden nugget to drop for our audience, what is it, like one takeaway, one thing that you'd like them to know above all else from your experience? What would that be?
Yeah, I think it's off of what I just said. Find intelligent people to be around you, professionally and personally. Find people who are equally passionate about anything and everything, right? Find friends that you can discuss vaccine policy with, and another that you're discussing, food sustainability. Whatever it is, if you find passionate people around you, they will continue to drive you, and you will want to be successful, and you will want to push yourself forward with those people around you. And so, yeah, I'm very lucky that I found now professionally an organization that allows that for me, and personally, people like you, Merritt, in my life that drive me along. So find your people.
Yeah. It's there's an old adage of who's in your room, right? It's like, and to understand that if you're the smartest or the most well-educated or the most driven person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room.
You are in the wrong room, but you know what I say is find someone in that room and take them out with you.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
One or two other people. So it's not just you being like, well, I'm the smartest, I got to go. Bring people with you.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. All right, Jenny. So where can people, if people want to talk to you about policy or government or traveling or being a working mama,
or letting go, right, or letting go of a hang up that you have to have the right title. I'm going to hammer this in one more time.
Yeah.
Even if your mother tells you you're supposed to be a VP by the time you're 40. Yeah.
Well, you and I both found that one out.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Exactly. The best way to reach me first is you can find more of my information and the wonderful consulting agency that I work for, Management Partners. It's at managementpartners.com, and you will find me, my bio, which is a little bit more professional in nature than maybe what Merritt has shared out, which is awesome in itself. There, and also my email address, maybe Merritt, you can share it in the chat as well. Yep. It's jtonnis@managementpartners.com. And I am always open to conversations about everything and anything. So if you're someone who has a great idea in local government, please tell me. If you're someone who's looking to enter local government or exit nonprofits or any of that kind of stuff, always open to conversations with people. I love them.
Awesome. Great. I'm just trying to put it in here. It's jtonnis @managementpartners.com. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today, Jenny. Is there, what do you have planned for the rest of your day? What are you doing this weekend?
I'm getting into my garden. One of the joys and balance I found in my life is that I work part-time and even more loosely in this pandemic. And my spouse and I built this beautiful garden. I'm in the tea house right now. And so I'm going to enjoy this sunny California weather.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you being here and sharing your wisdom. And you know how I appreciate you every day, every moment of every day. But you have also so much to give on so many levels. And so I just really am honored to have you here. And thank you for sharing yourself and your energy and your love.
I'm honored to be in your life and with you today. Thank you.
Mutual Admiration Society. All right, everybody. If you have any other questions for Jenny, please reach out to her at the, I just put it in the comments there for you at Management Partners, or at her email that I dropped in there. For me at Master of One Coaching, if you are interested in becoming, if you're a high achiever who is interested in becoming a world-changing leader in your own right, whether that's a conventional or uncommon pathway, go ahead and come to my website at masterofonecoaching.com. You can sign up there for my email list, and you'll get your free leadership journal. And we can set up a conversation and have a chat about your uncommon path. Thanks so much, everybody, and have a great week. We'll see you soon.